And I swear to God, I haven't actually rested since 2018. Like, even when I'm sleeping, I'm mentally checking off my next day's to-do list, which is still somehow 15 items long, and I know I'll only get 4 of them done, and that's if I don't get completely derailed.
And that feeling right there, the perpetually grinding state of exhaustion that never, ever resolves.
Never.
That is the absolute core of the philosophical horror show we're all living in. Because this isn't even about being merely overworked anymore.
Okay.
This is about modernity suffering from, and this sounds weird, too much positivity.
Okay, let's unpack that immediately. Too much positivity. That sounds like some, I don't know, high-level intellectual shade.
It does, I know.
I mean, what the fuck does that even mean when literally everyone I know is constantly depressed or anxious or just fundamentally burnt out and drinking 4 times too much coffee just to exist?
It means exactly that. We've been lied to about the source of our suffering. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han, he argues that historically, the pathologies of society were born from negativity.
Negativity, how?
From external forces, prohibitions, systems, masters who told you no or you cannot. We were constrained. We were what he calls obedience subjects.
Right. The disciplinary society, Foucault and all that. You knew the rules because they were enforced on you from the outside.
Exactly.
You were told what you couldn't do, and if you failed, it was, I don't know, the system's fault.
Precisely. We've replaced that external master with this terrifying internal master of the achievement society.
Most.
We are no longer governed by external prohibitions, but by the relentless expectation that everything is possible.
Right.
Everything is achievable. Everything is optimizable. We are the achievement subject. We are constantly told, yes, you can.
The achievement subject. That sounds like a badge of honor on LinkedIn, which is, again, the most deeply cynical and performative platform on the entire planet.
That's the trap. Because this supposed radical freedom just means we are self-exploiting.
We're our own boss, and our boss is an asshole.
A total asshole. And the exhaustion, the burnout, which so often precedes clinical depression, isn't a failure of the system. It's the pathological consequence of voluntary self-exploitation.
Voluntary.
You are running yourself into the ground not because someone else forces you, but because you genuinely believe you can and should achieve everything all at once, immediately.
That hits so hard because you are so right. The feeling of freedom attends the act of self-exploitation.
Yeah.
We feel like the project must be optimized. If I don't crush this week or if I don't hit some impossible goal, it's not the system's fault for the insane workload. It's my fault.
It's your fault.
For not being optimized enough, for not pushing harder, for not getting up at 4 a.m. I am my own cruel master.
You are. And you're trapped in a positive feedback loop of just striving and exhaustion.
So that's what we're doing here.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack the neurological and social reality of this self-exploitation. We're looking at 3 core devastating threads. How this constant hustle warps our actual brains into a state of neurological panic, which Han calls hyperattention.
Right.
Why, when we're desperate for a shortcut, we try to medicate that warping with speed, creating this profound stimulant paradox.
And the cost.
And what the real messy clinical costs are. The blurring, confusing overlap between ADHD, bipolar, and social anxiety in this high-speed environment. We are talking directly to you, the collective achievement subject, who is perpetually just too fast.
So let's start with the brain warping itself. We've all felt that constant hum, right? That frantic mental state Han talks about, hyperattention. We've been trained since childhood, particularly with phones and everything, to think that being able to juggle 5 tasks is like the ultimate skill.
The ultimate sign of competence.
But you're saying that this prized ability to multitask is actually a sign of deep cognitive failure.
It's not progress at all. It's a regression.
A regression, wow.
Hyperattention is defined not as deep focused attention, but as scattering your cognitive resources across all these various fragmented stimuli.
Okay.
Han literally compares the modern human in this state to a wild animal.
A wild animal.
Yeah, whose survival depends entirely on scattering attention across the landscape to scan constantly for threat, for food, for any new input. They have to be distractible to survive in the wilderness.
So my phone buzzing, my Slack channel pinging, the email notification popping up, the Instagram story update. I'm not focused. I'm not high performing.
No.
I'm just equivalent to a squirrel dodging a hawk.
That's it.
My brain has reverted to survival mode, and I'm calling it working.
Yeah.
That is profoundly depressing and just deeply exhausting.
And that neurological state, that constant scanning, is completely incompatible with the real intellectual work required to actually learn or create something meaningful.
Of course.
The sources contrast this state with vida contemplativa.
The contemplative life. I feel that so deeply. Whenever I try to sit still, my brain immediately gives me a 10-point checklist of things I forgot to do. Yeah. And then it just cycles through a list of all the terrible decisions I made starting around 2012. It's physically impossible to just be or think in a sustained way.
Because that celebrated hyperactivity, that constant cycle of doing and consuming and achieving, it's actually a passive surrender to external impulses.
A passive surrender.
We are responding, not initiating. We feel busy, we feel productive, but we are just reacting to the stimuli the achievement society throws at us.
Right.
That's where we get the anxiety, because deep, sustained effort, the resistance to those intrusive stimuli, is what defines true focus, and we've completely surrendered it.
And the irony of multitasking is that it's the modern norm, driven entirely by the constant buzz of technology. But it leads directly to increased chronic anxiety and strips us of any peace. We think we're getting ahead, but scientifically we're just drowning under the weight of open loops.
So many open loops.
This is where the infamous Zeigarnik effect comes in, and fuck if this isn't the theme song of the Achievement Society.
The Zeigarnik effect? Absolutely. The sources confirm this psychological principle. Uncompleted tasks take up significantly more mental space.
Way more.
And way more cognitive load than completed ones. Your brain's internal filing system is designed to keep those unfinished items right in the foreground, constantly nagging for attention because they represent survival needs.
Okay, give me a real-world example of what that means for a listener right now.
Okay, so it means you could cross 20 low-level items off your to-do list.
Yep, done it.
Send 200 emails, schedule 3 calls, finish a minor report. You'd feel exhausted, but you'd feel subjectively successful.
Sure, look what I did today.
But if you have one major open-ended project, say, you need to write a proposal for a major client, or you need to have a difficult conversation with a family member.
The big scary one.
That single uncompleted task will continue to run in the background, just consuming processing power. You are perpetually behind, even if you're wildly productive that day. The brain simply will not file the open loops away.
And what does the multi-billion-dollar wellness and hustle culture industry tell us? Don't stop.
Never stop.
Don't address the structural issue. Just optimize the process. Buy the expensive planner. Get up at 4 a.m. and crush it. You're lazy if you don't.
It's just cynical corporate theater. It's designed to sell you solutions for a problem they helped create.
Exactly.
The hustle culture industries demand we be more, achieve more, optimize more.
Yeah.
Yet this constant demand for optimization is just another form of self-exploitation, masked perfectly as self-improvement or self-care.
Right. Self-care is now a task.
It's still you squeezing productivity out of yourself.
We're told that this kind of overworking is necessary for success, but the data is physically damning.
It really is.
Overworking, and they're specific, working 52 or more hours per week, is linked to structural brain differences in 17 different regions.
17. That's insane.
We are talking about literal physical changes to the brain's architecture in areas linked to executive function, memory, and emotional regulation.
Oh my God.
We are physically changing the hardware of our minds, trading long-term health for quarterly reports. That's insane.
And this structural damage is just compounded by the confusion we have about rest.
We don't know how to do it.
We confuse casual downtime scrolling on TikTok, watching Netflix, playing video games with deep rest.
They are not the same thing.
Not at all. Casual downtime is passive consumption. Deep rest, like meditation or yoga or contemplative art, is a totally distinct state. It allows the nervous system to shift from that chronic fight-or-flight stress mode into recovery.
It signals safety.
It signals genuine safety to the body. Only then can it initiate cellular repair, hormone regulation, and genuine mental decompression. Casual downtime doesn't reliably engage those deeper restorative processes.
The science of rest is the actual rebellion here. When our minds are at rest, substantial activity happens. The default mode network, the DMN, lights up.
Right.
This isn't the brain shutting down. It's the brain consolidating, assembling, and processing.
That's right. The DMN is actively involved in memory consolidation, self-reflection, theory of mind, future planning. Rest isn't idleness. It's active regeneration.
It's work.
It's when the brain reassembles the day and does the critical work of integrating experiences into identity. If you never let the DMN fire, if you are constantly in a task-focused, hyper-vigilant state, You rob yourself of the neurological space required for true insight and creativity.
And we pour all of this optimization pressure onto the demographic that is, like, least equipped to handle it, emerging adults.
Ages 18 to 25.
Yeah. That period of life is already defined by identity exploration, profound instability, and a natural, healthy focus on self-differentiation.
And instead we tell them,
Yet the singular societal goal imposed upon them is extreme high achievement.
it just compounds the inherent instability of that life stage. The anxiety isn't just about college grades or job applications. It's the internalization of the idea that if they aren't constantly moving, constantly achieving, constantly optimizing, they are failing their own inherent freedom. That structural damage hits them earliest and hardest.
So let's follow that mental thread from internal self-exploitation right into the social domain, because the internal pressure cooker leads directly to social dysfunction.
Absolutely.
If you're constantly observing and optimizing yourself, you're also constantly projecting that internal surveillance onto the outside world. We're talking about social anxiety disorder,
SAD.
the quintessential disorder of the achievement subject. SAD is the intense and persistent fear of being observed, judged, or negatively evaluated by others.
Of course it is.
In a culture obsessed with performance, where success requires constantly selling yourself, your personal brand, your achievements, every single interaction becomes an evaluation.
Everyone. A high-stakes presentation, a simple coffee run with a coworker, everything is a performance metric.
Everything. And the cognitive model for SAD, the self-observer discrepancy, this is what really needs to be highlighted here, because it explains the neurological trick our brains play.
Yes.
It's not necessarily that the socially anxious person is physically more aroused than others.
That's the crucial, counterintuitive finding from the sources. It's so important.
Tell me.
Studies found that individuals with high social anxiety showed intense, self-focused attention. They are directing their focus inward to monitor their own physiological cues.
Like their heart rate.
Like a slight increase in heart rate, shallow breathing, skin conductance.
Right.
They also reported higher subjective physiological arousal. They felt more panicked, more jittery, more obviously nervous.
Right. They feel the panic building inside. But here is the critical distinction. When researchers objectively measured the physiological arousal,
The real physical data.
the actual heart rate, the actual skin conductance, the physical reality, there was no significant difference compared to the low anxiety group.
None. It's a profound cognitive misinterpretation, not an elevated physical experience.
So my brain is lying to me.
Your brain is lying to you. The anxious person takes normal, baseline physiological symptoms, a slight increase in heart rate because you're nervous before speaking, or the natural warming of the skin, and catastrophically overestimates the external visibility of that arousal to others.
Everyone can see I'm sweating.
Everyone sees me trembling, everyone sees how red I am, everyone knows I'm sweating, even when objectively they look completely calm. They're their own worst, most unforgiving audience.
And society reinforces this internal terror by valuing one particular psychological trait as the primary metric for career advancement and success: extroversion.
God, yes.
If you're not assertive, outgoing, and orally fluent, you are penalized. You have to perform confidence.
The high cost of extroversion is staggering. The research consistently shows that extroversion is linearly associated with peer popularity across social networks of varying sizes.
This isn't just a U.S. thing, right?
No, not at all. This trend holds even in cultures we stereotypically think of as highly introverted, like Finland, where high oral fluency mediates that popularity.
So if you're not naturally outgoing, you're just constantly performing a role,
All the time.
trying to mask the internal strain caused by that self-observer discrepancy.
Precisely. And the association is unilateral.
Yeah.
Introverts are unpopular as much as extroverts are popular. This societal preference forces a huge population of individuals to emulate extroverted behavior,
Which is exhausting.
which, when you are already dealing with high self-focused attention, just masks intense internal strain and exacerbates that fear of judgment and performance anxiety.
This chronic, hyperactive, emotionally unstable state leads us right into the crisis of clinical diagnoses where all the lines just blur.
Complete.
We're seeing a confusing overlap between ADHD, bipolar disorder, and generalized anxiety. It feels like the achievement society is manufacturing a specific type of compromised brain state.
It's incredibly challenging for clinicians because the symptoms overlap so much.
I bet.
Adult ADHD is notoriously tough to diagnose correctly. Most attention problems are not related to it, and nearly 90% of elevated screening symptoms are false positives.
90%.
You have decades of accumulated illnesses, trauma, anxiety, and sleep problems that mimic or severely complicate the picture.
And that constant overstimulation and emotional instability leads us to consider conditions like bipolar mania with depressive symptoms.
Also known as a mixed episode.
Yeah, a mixed episode. This is a severe form of bipolar I disorder where the person is simultaneously elevated and depressed. That sounds like the mental state of everyone I know after a 70-hour work week.
It captures that agitated exhaustion perfectly. The key indicators for the severe state are a high frequency of anxiety, irritability, and agitation, AIA.
AIA.
Patients experiencing depressive symptoms during a manic episode report increased irritability far more frequently than those in a pure manic state. This agitated, fast-moving, yet depressed state is incredibly difficult to manage and highly symptomatic of the speed trap.
And now we have neurobiological findings connecting these disorders at a fundamental level, don't we?
We do.
Studies using resting state functional magnetic resonance imaging, ours fMRI, show significant alterations in the procedural memory network.
Yes, in patients with ADHD, BD, and schizophrenia compared to healthy controls.
This is critical. The procedural memory network. What is that exactly?
It's the system responsible for automated tasks, habits, motor skills, learned routines.
The stuff you don't have to think about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's compromised across these conditions. This suggests a common link in cognitive impairment that makes simply navigating the world harder, requiring more conscious effort for routines that should be automatic.
And specifically in bipolar disorder, the sources point to hyperconnectivity in the brain, which sounds counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense for the feeling of being chronically hyper-aroused.
It's like too many connections are firing at once.
Exactly.
Increased functional connectivity, or RSFC, was observed between multiple deep brain regions, specifically the claustrum and caudate, the subthalamic nucleus and pallidum, and the cerebellum and the supplementary motor area.
Okay, wait, let's break that down because those are highly specific regions. If the claustrum and caudate are involved, what does that circuitry normally do, and what does hyperconnectivity there mean for the achievement subject?
Okay, so the caudate is a central part of the basal ganglia. It's heavily involved in the reward circuit, action selection, motivation. It's the go signal.
Got it.
The claustrum, while still a bit mysterious, is hypothesized to be a critical information hub, integrating inputs from across the cortex, potentially linking sensory info to conscious action.
So, what happens when they're too connected?
Hyperconnectivity between them suggests a disrupted, overactive balance in the foundational reward circuit. It's like the volume knob is set to 11 permanently.
So instead of a balanced reward system that says, okay, that task is done, take a rest, the brain is receiving constant, confusing, loud signals, demanding more output, more speed, more reward.
That's the idea.
It affects emotion regulation, motivation, and complex behavior. It's like the wiring is permanently short-circuiting in the fundamental circuits that govern impulse control and emotional stability.
And that is the definition of the emotionally unstable, constantly activated state we're seeing, regardless of the official diagnosis. The hyper-aroused brain is struggling to find the off switch.
So, we've established the neurological demand. The reward circuits are disrupted, and we need speed to maintain performance in the achievement society.
We need it.
We need dopamine, and we need it now because the system we are in demands that we run hot.
Right. ADHD, whether it's clinical or symptomatically induced by trauma and modern life, is proposed as a polygenic disorder involving imbalances in dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin systems.
Right.
It's often summarized as reward deficiency syndrome, RDS.
Reward deficiency syndrome.
The inherent wiring means the brain needs intense external input to regulate motivation, behavior, and attention. It craves stimulus because its baseline functioning is deficient in generating that internal push.
And that deficiency doesn't just result in poor focus. It manifests in intense, difficult-to-manage behaviors that make life impossible.
Completely.
The sources use incredibly vivid language to describe the behavioral signs of this deficiency. Severe stress intolerance.
Yes.
Yes.
They cannot tolerate frustration or delay. The moment they are frustrated, the anger is explosive. We are talking slamming doors, harsh words that burn bridges, explosive tantrums that are completely disproportionate to the event.
And that's not just in kids.
No. As children, this leads to fights and disciplinary issues. As adults, it manifests as losing jobs, alienating friends, and severe relationship instability because they simply cannot modulate that impulse.
So that high level of frustration leads directly to high impatience.
Oh, yeah.
They hate to wait in line. Delays of any kind make them frantic. They want whatever is going on, a trip, a movie, a discussion, to happen quickly and be finished because that hyper-attention state can't tolerate the slow, boring burn of waiting.
And this demand for speed and reward is driving a global addiction. Not necessarily to illicit drugs, but to chemical performance enhancement. We are seeing major, unprecedented increases in ADHD medication use.
These like Ritalin, Adderall.
Like methylphenidate, which is MPH, atomoxetine, or ATX, and lisdexamfetamine, LDX, across Europe. MPH remains the most prescribed substance for youth.
Can we quickly delineate the types? Because MPH is different than ATX. Right? It's not all just one class of speed.
That's a key detail.
Yeah?
Methylphenidate, MPH, is a potent reuptake inhibitor for dopamine and norepinephrine.
Okay.
It keeps those feel-good and focused neurotransmitters active in the synapse longer. It's a classic stimulant.
And ATX?
Atomoxetine is a norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. It has a less immediate psychoactive effect. It's more selective for attention.
And the last one.
And lisdexamfetamine, LDX, is a prodrug, which means the body converts it into dextroamphetamine, a powerful stimulant. They all target the dopamine-norepinephrine axis, attempting to artificially bridge that reward deficiency gap.
And the stats, particularly around the age of the achievement subject, are terrifying.
They are.
Slovenia, for example, saw a 10-fold increase in MPH and ATX use prevalence among adults aged 18 to 24 between 2003 and 2015.
A tenfold increase.
That is the peak age of emerging adulthood, where the pressure to perform is at its absolute highest.
And this brings us to the uncomfortable truth of stimulant misuse and diversion, which is rife in this high-pressure environment.
Of course it is.
While studies are often geographically limited, mostly focusing on college students in the U.S., the reasons for misuse point directly back to the demands of the Achievement Society.
Users aren't just taking these to get high, necessarily. They are consuming these substances primarily to cope with the pressure.
100%.
The most common reasons cited are to promote wakefulness, to just stay awake and keep moving, just like energy drinks are used.
Right.
And crucially, to improve focus engage in a task.
It's pure chemically aided performance enhancement. And the dosages in misuse cases are shocking.
How high are we talking?
We're seeing reported non-therapeutic dosages ranging from 100 to 400 milligrams.
400. The max is 60.
The normal therapeutic daily maximum is 60 milligrams. This is industrial-level use aimed at achieving the impossible goals society sets.
That's not just illegal, that's physically dangerous. The organic symptoms associated with this misuse are severe.
Extremely.
Gastrointestinal issues like loss of appetite, severe weight loss, dry mouth, and critically, cardiovascular events, palpitations, dangerous hypertension, chest pain, and increased risk of heart issues.
You're burning the engine out.
This speed is physically breaking people's bodies just to keep up with their to-do list.
And this leads us to the truly shocking finding. The central argument against the Achievement Society's chemical shortcut.
Okay.
The conflict between feeling productive and actually learning. This is the stimulant paradox.
Okay, lay it out. Because on the surface, they work. They increase wakefulness, concentration, endurance, euphoria, and boost self-esteem in the short term.
Yes.
You feel like a genius who can finally sit down and focus on the task for 8 hours straight.
You feel that subjective competence, yes. But you take. There is no conclusive evidence that they have beneficial effects on key objective academic performance measures. Grades, long-term knowledge retention, critical thinking, those don't consistently improve.
Hold up. You're telling me that the very tools we use to chase high achievement might be actively lowering our capacity for long-term learning and intellectual development.
That's what the data suggests.
Why would we feel so competent if we aren't actually improving?
That's the paradox. They may actively impair essential cognitive processes necessary for academic and intellectual development and reduce learning ability over time. The working theory is complex. Stimulants increase vigilance and concentration by suppressing competing neural networks.
Okay.
They basically force you into hyper-focus mode, eliminating distraction.
Okay, so they suppress the squirrel.
Exactly. But that same suppression, that forced tunnel vision, may actively inhibit the deeper cognitive work.
A DMN activity.
The DMN activity, the memory consolidation, the procedural network consolidation. All the stuff needed for real integrated learning.
It's the illusion of productivity masking long-term intellectual sacrifice.
Perfectly said.
You can stay awake and churn out a task, but you haven't actually learned anything permanent.
That is deeply cynical, but it makes structural sense. The Achievement Society values speed and output over depth and reflection.
It demands the illusion of productivity, even if that illusion means we sacrifice the very thing we're trying to achieve, true competence.
And we have to be intensely cynical about the funding behind these findings. The sources make it clear.
Oh, I'm sure.
Highly contradictory findings exist, especially after you exclude industry-sponsored studies,
No way.
which suggests a systematic bias in sponsored research aimed at promoting the efficacy of these drugs. The machine needs its lubricant.
So we can't fully trust the narrative that these are pure performance enhancers. They are, at best, a short-term lubrication for a fundamentally broken high-speed machine.
And the physical and intellectual cost is being paid by the people using them.
So we've diagnosed the problem. Neurological hyperattention, self-exploitation driven by positivity, neurochemical disruption, and a paradoxical reliance on stimulants that may be making us objectively exhausted and dumber in the long run.
The machine is broken.
The machine is broken. We need an exit ramp.
We need the countercultural response, which naturally is being beautifully and cynically co-opted by the internet,
Of course it is.
but which holds genuine truth. Slow maxing.
Slow maxing.
It is intentional slowing down to prioritize presence over speed. It is the direct opposite of burnout culture.
I swear I saw an ad for a $200 slow maxing journal yesterday. The internet will turn absolutely anything into a performance metric.
They will.
But taking the cynicism away, it sounds so simple, but it's hard as hell to implement when your brain is wired for hypervigilance.
It is hard because it requires intentional resistance to the constant stimuli. We need to implement strategies to signal safety to our brains, moving away from fight or flight.
So small things.
Start small. The sources recommend strategies like implementing a morning technology ban. No screens, no emails, no news for the first 30 or 60 minutes of the day.
And the reason for that is critical. It reduces morning hypervigilance.
Exactly.
If the first thing you see is 50 emails, your brain immediately enters the scroll dodging the hawk state for the entire day. You've lost before 9 a.m.
And implementing monotasking.
Yeah.
Seriously focusing on just one single activity.
It's just one thing.
One task in your laptop. One sip of coffee, fully experienced.
Yeah.
Not continuous partial attention spread across 6 windows. That sustained single focus is the antithesis of the hyperattention trap.
And the micro rituals. Taking 3 deep, intentional breaths before opening a difficult email or starting a meeting. These aren't just wellness fluff. They are intentional neurological actions to interrupt the physiological fight-or-flight response, giving your prefrontal cortex a moment to engage rationally instead of impulsively.
And this brings us back to the philosophical core. The true antidote to exhaustion is what the Achievement Society dismisses as unproductive. It's the profound benefit of contemplation and solitude. That deliberate quieting of the mind is critical for the prefrontal cortex to rest and the DMN to fire.
We need to stop feeling guilty for being bored. Boredom, real silence, real contemplation is when insight and creativity emerge.
Yes.
That's when you consolidate memory, not when you're cramming information into a frazzled, overstimulated brain.
And then the flip side of solitude, connection. We are social animals. Social health is a key pillar of wellness, and we often sacrifice it completely in the rush to achieve individually. That self-exploitation loop is inherently lonely.
We are fundamentally wired to connect. Self-determination theory confirms that relatedness, feeling socially connected to others, is one of 3 basic human needs, alongside autonomy and competence.
A basic need.
If relatedness is obstructed, we suffer severe physical and mental consequences.
The research on social isolation is terrifying. Lacking strong social ties is functionally as harmful to your body as smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being an alcoholic, and twice as harmful as obesity. The Achievement Society has convinced us that networking is important, but deep, sustained, vulnerable connection is just a waste of time.
And for the people dealing with the heavy lift of clinical issues like bipolar disorder, that hyper-aroused state social support is a matter of neurological survival.
It absolutely is.
Support groups like DBSA or NAMI, peer networks, and therapy focused on emotional regulation are vital coping strategies because they provide external regulation when the internal system is compromised.
The goal is to shift from the lonely, wired, individual self-exploitation loop. The exhaustion of the singular, striving ego to something collective. From I-tiredness to what Han calls we-tiredness.
That collective deep fatigue that brings wonder back into the world. It's a profound shift from the frantic, solitary striving to recognizing that we are all exhausted together, and the solution might be found in mutual rest, not individual, isolated achievement.
We stop viewing rest as an optimized activity and start viewing it as a collective necessary human state.
Okay, so let's tie it all together. What does this all mean?
We've synthesized the whole vicious cycle. The self-imposed rush to achieve, that belief that we can do everything, fueled by the philosophical delusion of positivity, forces our brains into neurological hyperattention, a survival state.
That state is then masked and amplified by stimulants that only give us the feeling of focus and short-term competence, while potentially impairing our ability to truly learn, consolidate, and grow in the long run.
We're producing a generation that is objectively exhausted, neurologically misfiring, and socially insecure, forced to emulate extroverted norms, and ironically failing at the very goal it's chasing, long-term intellectual and social success.
We are running as fast as we can just to stay behind, trapped by the promise of freedom.
So if burnout is the pathological consequence of voluntary self-exploitation,
And we know that true creativity and deep learning happen during deep rest when the default mode network is active.
then we have to ask a profound question. What cognitive work, what essential internal reflective work of identity formation and memory consolidation are we outsourcing to our phones and our stimulants? And what essential part of our humanity are we sacrificing in the process of achieving more?
The final provocative thought for you to carry with you. What if the greatest achievement in the achievement society is learning how to do absolutely nothing? What if successful resistance means simply sitting still?